Thank you. I'll take the one which I think was from my friend from Yemen, the community lessons. I think I made in my one of important recommendations and suggestions in the key lesson learned was that there is much more stronger need to have a community involvement and institutionalize the local level institution building and internalize them in a part of the government implementation program. And that flows from the fact that over the years, whenever such disasters are happening, there has been a very, very strong community response, and the community, being in the form of the community building local CBOs or the NGOs or the people at large, together with the variety of government institutions, are always working together at that time. And that's the way we have learned that lesson, that it needs to be further institutionalized, and that's what we are trying to look into. And more so, even the National Disaster Management Guidelines for the flood also make a mention of these kind of institutions over there. So it's pretty much taken into account, although there is always a need for strengthening. There were two general questions by one of our friends. Was one of about are you having any network for the disasters? As partly she has already mentioned that, even I'll come back to that, like whenever there are this kind of disasters like cyclones or the tsunamis, like India Meteorological Department and the World Meteorological Organizations and all other network institutions which are involved in this, they all are networked, and that's how with this through International Simulation Modeling Group, all these informations are getting and synthesized. So that way, yes, it is there, and that's how we are trying to improve upon our early warning system and the forecast, as I said earlier on. As far as in the next question was, are we making investments in research? Yes. I would not go into the details for the paucity of the time. If you see the kind of advancement which has taken place, it is definitely as a result of continuous research which has gone into not only in the weather forecasting, but also in the other response mechanism and the response systems. Say, for example, in India, we have a whole lot of institutions who are working with it regarding IMD to begin with for the meteorological. Then we have a National Institute of Hydrology, which looks into all various flood forecasting and the flood modeling aspects. Indian Council of Agriculture Research. We have got a very major flagship program on National Initiative on Climate Resilient Agriculture, NICRA, which is a very major initiative, started 3 years back. It is addressing all the issues of agriculture disaster. And right now, as a DDG NRM, I have also entered into an area, because so far in any kind of a disaster management guidelines, agriculture, particularly in case of floods, gets no place. We are trying to see that how best we can look into those kind of a thing. So there is a continuous investments being made to number of institutions, but as always I said, it's a continuous dynamic process, and the efforts are further and further being made. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just say quickly on the community disaster networking and research. Those three others have been taken care. On the community efforts, my slides just after when I finished, there were about 20 slides showing what the communities are doing. So the real initiative of recovering is being done by the communities. Nobody is paying them. They're doing it with their own effort. In Bangladesh, in the coastal area, millions of households are raising their plinth because the sea level is already coming and come. It is, one should remember, it is not the average, it's not the mean of 2 degrees centigrade or so much rise. It's the extreme. So in this sea level rise, it is the highest of the high tide. That is going to be the critical one. That's the lunar tide the 3 days where the salt water enters the house, enters the garden, destroys the agriculture. So it is the extremes that has to be attended to. And people are doing it. Government is starting to follow. Researchers are coming. It just so happens that the Western universities, Northern universities, and the Southern institutes are learning at the same time. Not one is ahead of the other, but we are learning at the same time. A lot of North-South, South-South exchanges going on. So communities are doing wonderful things. However wonderful they do it, is not going to be enough. Lot more needs to be done. That is the lesson. Second one, on the research network, disaster itself, a lot is happening in disaster management. The whole Hugo framework has become one of the 3 staple, our Millennium Development Goal to Sustainable Development Goal, Hugo framework. These are becoming 2 key issues of the future global planning. But again, a lot needs to be done. In Bangladesh, there is a ministry called Disaster Management and Relief. There is one of the major and most active and well-endowed organization is called Comprehensive Disaster Management Program. It's a large program where communities are doing participatory research. Universities, think tanks, we're all working together. Government, NGO, civil society, local government, and communities are working on these. Lot is happening, again, not enough. Thirdly, on the question of research, some initial and pioneering research is going on in understanding long-term issues. And for that, my organization and others, we are working on, we don't call it program. It's a lifestyle issue. Climate change related disaster is not going to be 3-year project, 15-year program, it's going to be lifelong issue. It has to be a continuous process. So the whole society must be geared towards that. And it's a much more stimulating requirement where we have to challenge our old style of projects, programs, 3 years, 5 years. We have to go into the much bigger world. As to the research, I'll give you just one example of major research that's happening on the in Asia and Africa called CARIA. It's a project which is $17 million project multiplied by 4. 4 such projects are happening in Asia on glacial melt, on delta processes, and on arid regions. So this is again North-South collaboration, high quality research. End product will take 5 years to see, but this is just in the beginning. Lot of interesting things are happening. Segmented, often institutionalized in their own merit, it's yet to be integrated. I think it calls for higher level of integration at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize. I think I'm going to have to break my promise about taking questions from this side of the room because our timekeeper is waving her card at me. So thank you all for coming and for your participation. And if you have any additional questions, I'm sure we would be happy to answer them up here after we close. Thank you. Oh, during coffee break, yes. Thank you very much.